Hello, BookTube. Well, there you have it in a nutshell. Me, books, Erasmus, and the Bean. You have it in a nutshell right there. But even though you've now got the whole gist of the channel, we'll continue on with my library tour for 2022. That was totally unplanned. There you go. We are in my little book room, which, keep in mind, is still too big. Still too big for me. I'd rather it be half the size that it is, but there was no room that fit that description. So we're going to move on to the next shelf here, and we're going to start with an Oxford book. The series that I've praised so many times. I love it dearly. This is probably my favorite one of all of them, the Oxford Book of the Sea, or historical fiction, or death, or friendship, or love, or children's stories. They did a whole run of them. That's a run of fantastic anthologies. Just fantastic. If you see any of them, you'll enjoy them. But this is my favorite one, I think. This is edited by John Gross. This is the Oxford Book of Essays. Certainly can't put it over here, can I? Since that's what you're looking at. This is the Oxford Book of Essays, just a nice, big, hefty helping of classic essays running for 400 years. I love anthologies like this. I have a huge number of essay anthologies. But this one I go back to a lot. And what do we got here? It's fairly old. Oh, okay. This is the Saturday Evening Post. Did an anthology of stuff. The Saturday Evening Post, I think, might still be published, but once upon a time, it was an absolute titan of the publishing industry in America. It was a taste setter. It was a gig that you wished you would get if you were a jobbing freelancer or even a well-respected author. And here I found this at the Brattle 2 years ago. This is the Saturday Evening Post Reader of Sea Stories. Very nice cover there, and just a collection of fiction and nonfiction stories set in the sea. So it would have gone well with all the nautical content that Mark and I made when I was up in Vermont. Okay, then we have a battered trade paperback of The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien that had a dumb cover. It had, I think, an Alan Lee illustration of elves waking up for the first time, the firstborn elves, under the light of the stars by a nice calm sea. Just about as boring a cover as you could possibly imagine giving a book. So I changed it. I gave it I put its own cover on there of a marauding dragon, which does happen a few times in the Silmarillion. It fits just fine. And this is, of course, Tolkien's Legendarium. This is a book that was heavily nailed together by other hands, but it draws on all of the lore of Tolkien's, the lore that underpins The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. So a lot of the most famous characters in The Lord of the Rings don't make any appearance in this book until the very end. Some of them do. Some of the characters who are mentioned either in song or story, or who are still alive in The Lord of the Rings, Elrond, Galadriel, do show up in here as minor or major characters. And of course this takes on extra significance because this is the most expensive TV show ever. Is Amazon's adaptation of 150 pages of this book, which is coming out in September. But your YouTube feed is going to be full of this long before September, because the trailer, the very first trailer, I think debuts during the Super Bowl. So we have one more day, two more days, until we get to see what the Amazon Lord of the Rings, The Ring of Power is going to look like. And a lot of the stuff that's in there will be drawn from this book. The one of the many, many heartbreaks that I think is coming to lifelong diehard Tolkien fans is that very little of this book will be in that series. And the tiny number of things from this book that are in that series will be in it wrong. They will be wrong. Names will be wrong. Locations will be wrong. Details that are easily accessible. Just go to an online version of this text and search for words. They're easily accessible. Those things will be wrong. They'll be in there, and they'll be wrong when they could easily have been fixed. So you diehard Tolkien fans that are hoping that this series is going to be true to the lore, if I were you, I would fortify yourself with copious amounts of alcohol before that trailer, because you're not going to like what you see. Anyway, let's move on here. Then we have A.C. Lyon's Invitation to Boston, a merry guide to her past, present, and future. And this came out in the 1950s, I think. All the illustrations are in black and white. 1947, which means this is a merry guide to her past, her less distant past, and her less distant past. There is no present and there is no future in this book. This is a history book now. This book was made before major road construction and highway building that has since gone, lived, rusted, annoyed everyone, been an eyesore, and been pulled down over the course of an entire decade. That's how much the city has changed. I love books like this. I have a whole slew of them on the history of Boston. I think it's interesting because the person who wrote this book did not think they were writing a book of history, which makes it all the more valuable, right? Because if you think you're just writing a snapshot of something that you're looking at around you, you won't try to impose any historical judgments. You won't look at what's around you and think, well, should I mention that? Or is it going to be important in 50 years? You won't do that if you don't think you're writing a work of history. And that's what makes these things, these contemporaneous things, so invaluable. Okay, then we have another anthology. This is the Best American series. Who does this? I ought to know. Houghton Mifflin does the Best American series. Do it every year. It started out very small with just the Best American short stories, but it's moved on now to it's a whole run of things on their own. And again, a very worthwhile run to get. If you're in your bookstore, if it's a mainstream bookstore, they'll almost certainly get a gigantic cardboard floor display that will have all of the best Americans when they come out. They come out once a year. This is the Best American Essays, edited by Ann Fadiman, from 2003. And it's the only one that I have, and I kept it for one particular piece, Citizenship in Emergency by Elaine Scarry, which originally came out in the Boston Review. And is a study, a very angry study, a very, very well done study, an examination of what happened immediately on the morning of 9/11. What was going on, and what aspects of 9/11 reflected democracy in action, and which ones didn't. And her book, Citizenship in Emergency, that essay has come under fire from a number of different quarters. I thought it was brilliant, just brilliant. One of the best essays that I've ever read in the Boston Review, first of all, certainly, and one of the best things that I've ever read in this series. I had to have it. I was hoping that they would run it. It might be online. You might be... What are you doing, Bean? Huh? Frida, what are you doing? Your fans are watching you. What are you doing? You're just going to make yourself comfortable over there? Just had a long walk. So, what are you doing, baby? Huh? And I'll tell you, the long walk, I know I'm not going to get any credit from herself because she hates being clipped, but she had 70 shaggy bell-bottoms on her legs. She has legs again now. She has feet and toes again now, and that makes it a lot more enjoyable when you're not tracking all the outdoors inside. But we had to go at it. We had to do her legs, which she doesn't like. She hates it when I do her legs. She hates it even more when I do her belly because she has to be on her back for that. And she hates most of all her pretty little face. She can't stand having scissors near her face. I guess you wouldn't either, right, if the scissors were being held by me. We're managing. So far, I haven't taken an ear off. But anyway, I strongly recommend Citizenship in Emergency. I strongly recommend Elaine Scarry anyway. Her books are great. Okay, then we have another anthology. This is the Faber Book of Diaries, edited by Simon Brett. And it's a fantastic thing. I feel a little bit weird about saying that because the last Faber book I got was the Faber Book of Letters, and it was not good. It was a third this size, and it wasn't anywhere near as inviting or enjoyable as this. The one problem I have with the Faber book is that it's not well made. The binding tends to crack and would pop if I used it a little more, and the pages age. They were not top quality pages, but still, anthologies of diaries, I just love them. I just love them. I keep a diary of my own. That makes them all the more enjoyable. Then what do we got here? A battered trade paperback. Oh my. James Hart, The Popular Book, A History of America's Literary Taste. Wish I had this in a more durable format. I go back to this a lot, and I'm peeking at it like this because I'm afraid of breaking it. Because this is a really good literary history of the United States. The fads, the byways, just wonderful. A skinny little thing. Oh, great. All right. This is Tiziano Scarpa. This is Venice is a Fish. Tiny little, very impressionistic guide to my second favorite city on earth. Very, very nice thing. I think I might have reviewed it in eons past. Then Joseph Brodsky, the great Joseph Brodsky, also did a thin book on Venice, Watermark. Those two next to each other. Then we have Emily Neville's pioneering YA novel, It's Like This Cat, which I found in a mass market paperback once on Cape Cod, and I read it. I hadn't read it when it first came out, and then I wanted it. I really wanted it. I wanted it in a form that would allow me to reread it. It's been reprinted many times in trade paperbacks with many different covers. Here you have the young boy protagonist with his padded shoulders for the fashion of the time. This might be what the original hardcover looked like. And it's great. The title is a little misleading. The book is really not about a cat. but as far as YA fiction goes, I think it really breaks the mold of what had come before it and establishes the mold of what came after it. Okay, then we have from is this Soho? World Noirs. Europa editions. All right, this is Maurizio De Giovanni. This is I Will Have Vengeance, Commissario Ricciardi. This is the first book in the series set in mid-20th century Naples. It's a police commissioner who is very good at his job, very observant of everything around him. And one other thing. He sees dead people. He doesn't just see dead people roaming around like ghosts. He sees them in a very specific context. The dead people he sees are trapped forever in their last minute, uttering their last utterance. They aren't talking to him. They don't see him. They don't communicate in any way, and they don't elaborate. They're just set on repeat. So he will be walking, and he's haunted by this, of course. He's a haunted figure. He'll be walking down the street, and he'll see a little child run down the street towards him, and the child's head and whole chest is caved in and covered in caked blood. And the child is repeating over and over again, "Can I play outside? Can I play outside?" Because that's the last thing the child said. And every once in a while, in the course of his official duties as a police officer, that horrible, haunting talent of his comes in handy. Every once in a while, he will go to a murder scene, and his men will be, photographing and taping and measuring everything, and over in the corner of the room will be the dead person, standing there, with a smile on her face, saying, "Well, you're the last person I expected to see." And Ricciardi's the only one who can see these things. And he has to figure out what they mean. But sometimes it can make a difference. These books went on and on. The one regret that I have about Europa editions is that I have not kept any of the other volumes except this one. I really, really should have, because these are terrific. And I don't know that I'm ever going to see them again, unless I go to Europa's page and just buy them with, what do you call it? Money? I'd rather not do that. Well, next time they have some big push that they want to do, maybe I'll wheedle my way into a few of those copies, if they still make them. Okay, then we have, this is a book by Gordon Grice. It's called The Red Hourglass, Lives of the Predators. This is about predatory animals that secrete poison, animals that trap and pounce and bite and sting and spike and whatnot. And it's very, very good. It's fantastic writing, but there's a reason why this edition has a brown recluse spider. Oh no, that's a black widow on the cover. Yes, that's a black widow on the cover. But the thing you're going to remember about this book is the chapter on the brown recluse spider and what its venom does to you. Wow. It is. I mean, it's a very good book just from start to finish, but that chunk of this will stick with you for the rest of your life on what the brown recluse spider does. And keep in mind, if you live in the American Northeast, then a brown recluse spider is nested and growing a family within 4 feet of where you're watching this video. They stay away from you. They don't like encountering people. But if you have a wood pile outside, for instance, maybe you have a working fireplace or a wood-fed stove, if you ever go out into that pile in the autumn and the winter in order to grab a few logs to bring back inside, and you don't wear gloves, and I mean good gloves that go all the way up your wrist, you're running a real big risk. I mean, you should do that anyway, because in the autumn, snakes might be preserving warmth in your pile, and also other kinds of spiders. But worst of all, brown recluse spider. If, for instance, you go to a somewhat seedy motel in the Northeast, in, again, the autumn and the early winter, make sure that you pound the pillows. Make sure that you turn out the bed completely, flip the mattress, pound the mattress. Make sure that you do that to give yourself a good visual idea of whether or not the worst thing in the world you want is to go to sleep on one of those pillows and be bitten on your face by a brown recluse spider, or many of them. See, I'm already going down the rabbit hole. Trust me, if you find this book, it's been reprinted a few times, so you might, and you are a strong stomach, read at least the chapter on the brown recluse spider. It will change your life. Well, what have we got here? Ah, okay. This is a debut novel by John Cotter called Under the Small Lights. John Cotter was one of the three of us who started Open Letters Monthly, the online literary journal that came out, I think, in 2007. Started in 2007, went for 10 years. This is his debut novel, and it's very, very good. Mainly at its heart, the story of a friendship between two young men. Oh goodness! Oh my! All right. Well, we've got a block of similar things to look at here next. The type of thing that you get to accumulate either by going to various shows in and around the notable buildings here in Boston, or by having the Brattle Bookshop to shop in. The first one is a handbook to the art and architecture of the Boston Public Library. That is my library. That is one of three of my libraries. I should say three of my libraries. One of my libraries is a tiny little thing up in Vermont. but I have two libraries here in Boston. One is a private library, and one is the greatest public library in the entire world, the Boston Public Library. That is the front of the old building with the two muses and the names carved all the way around the building of famous literary and scientific figures. You can't really make it out. If you stand there, you can go all the way around the building and look at those names. And those tall windows there let light onto Bates Hall, which I mentioned yesterday. There is no greater feeling for me, no greater Boston-related feeling than walking up those steps right there. I don't do it anymore because my little Frida would be miserable if I left her. She's miserable anyway when I have to leave her. When I don't have to leave her, oh my, that's even worse. And unlike many, many dogs that I've had, including the last two that I had, she's easily smart enough to know. She knows every thought that I have. She knows when I'm going out when I don't need to versus when I'm going out when I need to. She knows the difference between those two. She's, I swear, as smart as the smartest of my beagles. Maybe even just a tiny bit smarter than the smartest of my beagles. Or maybe it's just she knows me better. But I don't go to the BPL anymore. And I miss it. There's a book on the BPL. The old building is full of art and notable architecture, just full of it. There are John Singer Sargent murals that exist nowhere else. Of course, you can't move them. You can photograph them. And tons of other things, too. Statues and all kinds of things. Oh, okay, all right, this is my other library. This is Michael Wentworth's book, Look Again, Essays on the Boston Athenaeum and its Art Collection. The Boston Athenaeum is a private library here in Boston, up on Beacon Hill, 10 and a half. I don't know if this is going to give me a picture of the inside. It gives me lots and lots of pictures of the artwork, but not a picture of the inside. No, okay. Well, for years and years and years, the Athenaeum is very old, and for years and years, I mean, it still looks like that. The artwork is right there on the walls. It's right there in the staircases and in the nooks and crannies. It's not set off with velvet ropes. It's not behind glass. So you can walk right up. It decorates the rooms at the Athenaeum. Both the first and second floor, I think, are open to the public. You can go in and look around. And I think there are formal tours that you can take of all 5 stories. And there's a little story up above the 5th floor. The 5th floor of the Boston Athenaeum is wonderful as a place to go and work. It's just wonderful. Again, I don't go there either. I don't even go up in that area. It used to be that I absolutely haunted that area for the Athenaeum, and there's one particular restaurant right around the corner from the Athenaeum, and there's also the State House, which has a lot of old cronies and friends of mine that work there and have worked there forever. Also, the State House has a working post office, and it's right there on the Common, so I can get my fill of dogs. I can go and smooch with dogs anytime I want. Just walk around the corner to the Common, and also it's 30 seconds away from the Boston courthouse, from the Boston court systems, where again I know lots and lots of people. So it used to be that I had a little area up there, and it's also right. If you walk right down the hill, you're at the Brattle Bookshop. So many is the time. Many is the time when I made an outing for the Boston Public Library, because I know people there and I loved going there. And once upon a time, there was a row right across the street on Boylston Street. There was a row of cheap, really good restaurants. The renting market has driven them out. They're all gone now. But for a long time, there was a row of great shops and restaurants there where you could go. And it's also right across the street from Trinity Church, where, again, I knew people, and right across the street in another direction from another old church where I knew someone who worked there for a long time. And it's a block away from Barnes & Noble, from a big, bustling Barnes & Noble. So I used to make this used to be a day, is what I'm trying to say. There was plenty to do. There was a place to have lunch. while my dogs were peacefully sleeping back at home. And the same thing is true with the Athenaeum. It was possible to make it easily, to make a day of it. So morning of stuff to do, working at the Athenaeum, knowing everyone around there, being expected, people knowing my face, having a place for a delicious lunch, having a place to go when I'm gone, go to a bookstore, either Barnes & Noble or the Brattle, and then head back to your old sleeping dogs. Now, I don't have an old sleepy dog right now. I have a young dog who's perfectly happy to hang out as long as she's nearby. I told her I was coming in here to make a video. I was going to sit on a chair and make a video, and she was upset until I brought her in here. She can't get any closer to me than that. She doesn't like sitting on the floor. She's a little pampered. But she doesn't like to be any further away from me than that. So I don't go to these places anymore, and I miss them. I don't deny that. Okay, all right. Well, we got the greatest hits here. This is the Massachusetts State House, which is directly right across the street from the Shaw Memorial by Augustus St. Gaudens, but it's also right diagonally the same distance from the Boston Athenaeum. So it's a grand, magnificent pile with the gold gilding on the top there. It sits on the top of Boston Common, sits on the top of Beacon Hill, surrounded in the back by a million wonderful neighborhoods, every crammed 3-story brownstone in those neighborhoods. I know their history. I've been in every one of them. I've been a guest, invited and welcome in almost every one of them. All the hidden little nooks and crannies. There even used to be way on the other side of Beacon Hill, going down towards Mass General. There used to be a fully functional retail bookstore. I don't think there are any retail bookstores on Beacon Hill anymore, but there used to be a cute little one, and still is a fully functional. There's a great vet there. There's a great post office there. The Massachusetts State House is full of art. It's full of significance. It's full of historical significance, and this is an example of that. So this gives you pictures and details of all of the artwork, all of the offices. There is I'm not supposed to tell you this, but there's an absolutely great library in there. It's for members only. It's for State House employees and statespeople only. But if you went to school in South Boston with the right people, you will be badged in. So we're just going to keep going with trips down Boston memory lane. Yes, we are. This is a cute little guidebook to Bullfinch's Boston. The great architect Bullfinch's all through Boston. I don't think this has any photographs. This just has drawings. When you're in a certain part of the city, you can't go very far without seeing something that's Bullfinch. If you're ever unlucky enough to be trapped here with me, I will happily tell you all about this until you're ready to slit your wrists or go back to Poughkeepsie or wherever. And then I think this is the last one. I would hope so. This is an older book, Days and Ways in Old Boston, which my copy has seen better days. It's falling apart. I do occasionally see this in hardcover. I really should grab the next hardcover that I see. And this is just old lore of Boston in bygone days. Old drawings and whatnot of people. There's my Deb. That used to be the fashion at the time. So there's a little brace of Boston-related books there. Architecture for the State House. I'm surprised there aren't a bunch of books here on Harvard as well. Guides like this for Harvard. I'm surprised. They must be somewhere else. Okay, then we have a book about Martha's Vineyard, which is an island off the coast of Massachusetts. It's a wonderful place. I know it in every blade of grass, in every grain of sand, in every inch of mood and weather and season. I've talked about it many times on this channel. And there's a broadsheet newspaper, an old storied broadsheet newspaper on that island, and I am their book reviewer. But this, oddly enough, I did not review for the Vineyard Gazette. I reviewed this for the Christian Science Month, and I did it before I became a reviewer for the Vineyard Gazette. So oddly enough, I'm sure this was reviewed for the Gazette, but it was done by somebody other than me. That feels like sacrilege. This is by Madeline Blaise, and it is To the New Owners. The conceit being that this is a protracted memoir that the owner of an old vineyard house is writing down before they surrender it to new owners. And there's a Christian Science Monitor blurb on the back there. What did I say? A bittersweet ode to Martha's Vineyard home. The broader canvas of vineyard life, the shops, the storms, the wry local humor is painted with exactly the kind of skill and evocation readers would expect from the author of the best-selling In These Girls, Hope is a Muscle. Kind of weird that I'm blurbed on the book, but not from the venue that I would expect. No Martha's Vineyard book gets past me now. And then what's this last one? Oh my, oh goodness gracious. All right, this is Dennis and Marion Chatham. This is Cape Coddities. This is yet another Cape Cod book. Just a collection of odd folklore and little details with black and white spot illustrations. Yeah, black and white spot illustrations. It's a tiny little thing. These things used to sell like hotcakes on Cape Cod in the day. This is probably 100 years old. How old is this? Are you going to tell me? 1920. Yeah, so 100 years old. And does not belong here. I'm not rearranging these books. I promise I'm not. But obviously this does not belong here. It belongs with the batch of Cape Cod books that we saw just yesterday. So I'm just the other day. I'm going to put it up there so I don't forget. But that's it. That is this shelf. No duplicates. No nothing that I need to pull, which is great. But lots and lots of fun stuff. Lots and lots of stuff that has to be in this room. It can't be anywhere else. So I'm gonna wrap this up, but we will continue with our library tour. We'll go on tomorrow. So I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.